Hello and welcome to the CX Files podcast for February 1st, 2024. My name is Mark Hillary and I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
And I'm Peter Ryan in Montreal. Mark, great to see you and hope that everything is going well for you as we round out the end of month one of 2024. I cannot believe how time is flying.
Yeah, absolutely. We're counting down to a carnival in Brazil now. So it's going to get crazy over the next couple of weeks. And I've actually got a trip into the interior, like into the mountains immediately after carnival. So that should be good.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I hope you have a good time. Carnival is something I've always wanted to check out, and certainly a visit into the interior of Brazil sounds morbidly fascinating too.
Well, excellent. I don't know about morbidly fascinating.
Well, no, listen, I binge watched a few years ago one of the best travelogue series I've ever seen. It was when Michael Palin did a visit into the interior in Brazil. He went down a boat on the Amazon, and it's amazing what you think you know about a country, and then when you see it through the eyes of somebody like a Michael Palin, who's an experienced adventurer with very little fear, I'd say, there were parts of that episode that, or one of the episodes, I do recall seeing he was a little bit trepidatious in terms of where he was going and what he was finding.
Yeah, I remember that he found a ghost town in the middle of the Amazon forest, which was actually created by Ford a long time ago and called Fordlandia. So they'd actually tried developing an entire city in the middle of the Amazon to develop Ford vehicles, which now you can get there, but you have to go there by boat. So it's very difficult to visit. And it looks a bit like, I don't know if you've been to any ghost towns out in the American West, but if you go to some places in California and Nevada, it feels crazy to see some of those towns there.
Look, the province I come from in Canada called Saskatchewan is actually rife with ghost towns. It's incredible. You can go to communities. I remember visiting and playing ice hockey in 35, 40 years ago. I know I'm dating myself here, but now they're little more than empty shells of what they once were. And I was talking to a friend of mine when I was out visiting over the holiday period, and we were chatting a little bit about the ghost town phenomenon. And I asked him, how is it that the government is still allowing these ghost towns to exist? They're rife with infestations of vermin. There's lots of vandalism. They're also prone to potential criminal elements setting up shop there and living. And my friend's comment was, the government couldn't afford to take them all down. There's just so many. And, you go to these small communities where the grain elevator and the rail line literally kept the community in business, and like cafes, restaurants, barber shops, hotels, now just gone, disappeared. But we're not here to talk about ghost towns today, Mark, are we? We're here to talk.
No, we're actually here to talk about the future rather than the past. So
the future. That's right. That's right.
We should probably introduce our guest. Yes.
Yeah. So our guest this week is actually somebody who I have been connected with for a long time on LinkedIn. Coming to us from beautiful Belgrade in Serbia is Nina Čaprić. Now, Nina is I guess the best way to put it would be, she is the individual that is responsible for government relations for NCR Voyix. Now, NCR is a fairly large business services provider. They've got a major hub in Belgrade, and I'm always intrigued by the content that Nina puts out on LinkedIn. Very thoughtful, has some really interesting ideas in terms of the role of the government relations officer. And it's a role that I'm seeing more and more popping up for BPOs and CX service players in different parts of the world. So what I thought we would do this week is dive into Nina's role, dive into what she does at NCR Voyix, and talk a little bit about the importance of having an officer who is responsible for liaising with the different levels of government. Because Mark, as you know, you've traveled around the world, you've seen different sites. Having a good relationship with all levels of public administration is really essential to seamless service delivery.
Yeah, we had a conversation about the public versus private sector during the analyst session at the beginning of the year, and I think that we will see more activity this year in the public sector. As you look around the world, there's just seems to be increasing uncertainty, and public sector and government organizations, and also organizations that are run similarly. So like charities, for example, or membership organizations. I think that, all of them are kind of looking around and looking at the experience of the private sector. And there's likely to be a lot more activity. I think because, traditionally we've always seen outsourcing and outsourcing with a BPO partner as a cost-cutting move. It's something that has been traditionally led by the cost of the contract. And yet there does seem to be a much stronger focus on value recently, and what the partner can actually offer. And I think that this is now making it much more attractive to the public sector as well, because they're seeing, what can we offer to our citizens that actually improves the service that their government is offering.
Yeah, exactly. And I think in the case of what Nina's talking about today, what she's going to provide some clarity around is how the role that she occupies, or that anybody liaising with the government occupies from a BPO perspective, how they can work with the government to make sure that all aspects of the delivery of service for clients, whether it's in the private sector or government entities, goes as smoothly as possible. Now, it was really an interesting chat, and I'm sure that it's going to provide a lot of illumination to our listening audience about the role of a government relations officer. And one of the questions I ask Nina, and I think she gives a great answer around, is, if an organization, a growing BPO or an established one, doesn't have a government relations officer, why should they think about bringing one on? So why don't we swing down to hear a little bit about what Nina has to say in the interview that I conducted, and very anxious to hear feedback from any and all who are interested in this type of a role and what it could do for their CX or BPO delivery.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Today on the CX Files, the impact of government relations on the outsourcing in the CX sector is our topic of discussion. And this is an area that I have been interested in for some time. It's an aspect of the business I don't feel gets enough attention, but certainly in an era of changing government policy, in changing compliance and changing statutes and legislation, it's one that everybody should have top of mind, no matter what country they're operating in. And to help shed some light on this topic, I am joined by Nina Čaprić, who is in the hot seat from Belgrade. Now, Nina is the Government Relations Manager, EMEA, for NCR Voyix. Nina, I'm conscious I might have mispronounced a number of different words in that introduction. How did I do?
Pretty well. I would give you 10 plus.
A 10 plus?
Yeah.
Out of 20?
Out of 10.
Oh, well, in that case.
So we're off to a great start. Thank you.
We're off to a great start. And the only thing that would make this better is if we each had a bottle of rakia in front of us, which I've had the chance to sample many, many times during my visits to your part of the world. But I think that we will need to say that for another occasion, as it's quite early here in the morning and you're still at work.
Yeah, but I can promise now live on the record that the next time you come to Belgrade, rakia is on me.
Okay, cool. Excellent. Well, I can tell you that visit will then be sooner rather than later. Nina, look, it's really good to have you chatting with us today. And as you and I were talking about before I hit the record button, this had been planned for some time. I'm glad we were able to finally make our schedules work, because, look, government relations is very much a topic that we do hear a lot about in the BPO and the CX space. It's not one that I would say gets as much attention in the broader, say, LinkedIn discussion or within the trade press, but it's essential. So as a starting point, I would be curious, can you just explain to myself and to the listeners what your role entails, maybe in 2 or 3 sentences, as a way to kick off our chat today?
Absolutely. as a government relations professional working for a tech company, my job is to make sure our brand is properly represented, first and foremost externally, but also internally, and that our policy priorities are managed well through engagement with key stakeholders, such as government officials, industry associations, representatives of other companies, and so on. I also follow and analyze market and competitive trends to ensure we meet our own market needs, but also those of our customers. And that can sometimes include development of country risk reports and political stability analysis to support the company market access, but also to answer any questions coming from our clients. Of course, I deal with different policy initiatives and track legislative process, which I think is probably the first thing that comes to mind when someone mentions government relations. And in that capacity, my job is to work with internal stakeholders to define our public policy positions, and then to use those positions to act as a trusted advisor to a certain government, either individually or as part of a broader business coalition.
So it's a very multifaceted job, and you've talked about a lot of different elements. You know, you're talking about market analysis, you're talking about stability analysis, and you're talking about liaising between aspects of your own organization and potentially different levels of government. So as a follow-on question, could you talk to us a little bit about what it's like acting as that liaison between an outsourcing or a CX operation when you're potentially going and having to deal with representatives at the national, state, province, or even municipal levels of the public sector?
Absolutely. And I will actually start my response by talking about some challenges and some rewarding parts of this job, and then that will kind of be the introduction to the answer you're looking for. The biggest challenge is to achieve the famous work-life balance. Government relations professionals are available 24/7. That does not mean people call us 24 hours a day, of course not, but one can never know when our expertise is going to be needed, especially if you cover different different geographical regions like I do. Moreover, we get invited to different types of events. Usually, or oftentimes, they happen outside of the regular business hours. And you have to show up, because showing up and representing the company is definitely an important part of our job. So a normal day for us means juggling between events, internal and external meetings, regular office work such as emails, reports, creation of plans, strategies, presentation, etc. And it is very important for all of us working in this area to have managers, leaders, and even colleagues that we can trust and who can let us organize our time in a way we think is the best and most productive. On the other side, being exposed to so many different people, experiences, information is the most rewarding part of the job. I'm a big proponent of lifelong learning and constant development, and it makes me really happy that there is always something new to learn and experience through both internal and external engagements I have on a daily basis. And that willingness to grow and the richness of being exposed to a variety of different cultures and insights is, I think, a key to any type of relationship. You mentioned in your question, you mentioned specifically different levels of government, but government officials are not the only stakeholders we interact with. And different actors require different approaches. One size fits all is definitely not an approach that works in our sector. And you have to be mindful of many things and tailor your style based on those components. And everything that I said really leads to that. If you want to be a good connection between different stakeholders in your company, between different stakeholders and your customers, you just have to be exposed to a variety of different things and take them into consideration.
And I'm guessing that it takes a lot of patience as well. You're dealing with a lot of moving parts, a lot of different types of personalities. And I can say, as somebody who in a past life had been on the government side, more on the political side of things than the public administration, you're dealing with egos. There's a lot of people who have a great opinion of themselves and love to self-aggrandize. So I'm sure that being able to manage these various components as you're looking to affect change and to best represent your organization, it's truly something that really takes a lot of endurance as you move into the role and as you carry it out on a day-by-day basis.
Absolutely, and you have to be very strategic. So to give you an example, I was at a conference last year. It was outside of Belgrade, but a Serbian prime minister was one of the speakers. And of course, everyone wants to say hi to the prime minister. My job was to make sure she knows that we as a company were there. We were actually the only Serbian company present in the conference. But, approaching her would not give me any results because it would be, hi, we are here, and that was it. So I was looking for her chief of staff, and I was able to have like a meaningful conversation of like 5 to 10 minutes with him to make sure that he knows we were there, why we were there, what were we saying at the conference, what positions we were representing. And I think that was a better strategic decision at that time than just, approaching her and having 10 seconds of her time and actually not having the opportunity to really let her know like why we were there and to give her like the full background.
Yeah, there's a big difference between people who clamor for selfies with important government people and those who can actually get some time and explain why they're there, what they're doing, what their company's up to, and the importance of representing, and in this case, a Serbian company participating in a big conference. And I think that's a great example what you've just provided. So let me ask you, from the standpoint of a lot of the outsourcing firms that I've come up against, I know many of them don't have an individual that fulfills your role, that has a government relations expert or somebody that manages this process and these different elements about interacting with the different stakeholders. What would you say would be the advantages of a firm taking on a person like you, and what steps should they be thinking about as they would aim to try and design this role and potentially fulfill it?
Absolutely. So I will start by saying few things, just very briefly about the company I work for, to just give your listeners some context for the answer I'm about to provide. So NCR Voyix is a global provider of top-notch digital commerce solutions for retailers, restaurants, and digital banking customers. We have been present in the world of commerce for almost 140 years. And today we focus on transforming the stores, restaurants, and digital banking experiences with cloud-based platform-led software as a service solutions and services capabilities. And to illustrate that with a concrete example, I will use actually an example from hospitality industry. As you said at the beginning, I'm from Serbia. And, people in the Balkans, we just really appreciate a good meal. So no surprise that I'm using hospitality for my example. So let's say you're listening to this podcast, to this particular episode, and there is a person from Serbia who has just started talking about food. Of course, needless to say, right away you started to feeling a little bit hungry and you decide to order something from your favorite restaurant. There is a chance that when you go to their website or open their app, that the technology behind your online ordering experience is ours. That means that your favorite restaurant asked us to create an online ordering option that would best reflect their clients' preferences and are relying on us to manage it, but also to guide them through possible improvements and innovations that they can implement to make online ordering even better for their customers. And the reason why I said all of this is, we are a technology company. And when you're a technology company, innovation is your second name. And being a tech company that constantly innovates, means that you must have this constant awareness of new developments in the ever-changing regulatory scene affecting technology sector. On the other side, we must pay attention to the industries our customers are coming from. So for us, that's hospitality, retail, and finance, because any news happening on that front is of a big interest for us as we create solutions that empower them to succeed in today's competitive landscape. On top of all of that, we are very interested in initiatives that have impact on a broader business community. In Serbia, we have 3,300 people, even though we are a US-based company. But Serbia is just one of our strategic locations, and very important locations. And when you have so many employees in one country, you are interested, for example, in any changes that might occur with, let's say, labor law. So tomorrow, the government may decide to amend some parts of the labor law, and we would definitely closely monitor that legislative process, because it might affect lives of 3,300 people and their dependents. The good thing about policies and legislative process, though, is that it takes time to get to the finish line, and that gives us opportunity to prepare for a change in case one is coming. But we have those resources, and we have capabilities, and we have expertise to prepare for those changes, but also for the unexpected events, such as a global pandemic, for example. It's hard when you have to, make fast changes, fast adjustments, but it's not possible if you have a structure and team in place. And combining what I just shared with some things I previously mentioned, I would argue that companies looking to establish a government relations team should search for individuals who are open-minded, adjustable, willing to grow, who are ready to multitask and deal with different areas and different issues at the same time. They also need to make sure their government affairs professionals are good communicators, who will not only represent the corporate brand well, but also each part of the company, depending on the situation. And a good government relations person definitely needs to be well informed about the world around us. Small talk is an integral part of every event we attend, of every interaction we have. And you just never know who you're going to end up having a conversation with. And that is actually why I start my mornings by reading all sorts of news, politics, sports, culture, travel. Each of these segments, just to mention a few of them, can be brought up during a conversation. And as a government affairs professional, you definitely do not want to be excluded from a conversation, regardless of the topic.
Yeah, I think that's a really good policy to try and get as much of an overview and what's been happening in the news as possible. It's funny, I do the exact same thing, and I've got 5 or 6 different newspapers I will pick up, or I guess read online at this point. Nobody picks a newspaper up anymore. And it's just amazing over the course of a day what topics can come up during a discussion, during a meeting. You've got to be at the ready. As you say, you don't want to be excluded from a conversation. You don't want to be shut out. You don't want to be in the know. You want to be able to make sure that you can be able to maintain that level of interaction as much as possible. So very important that way. So Nina, last question I've got for you. I'm going to put myself in the shoes of a client of an outsourcing firm, whether it's your own or another one. A firm that's going to be providing third-party services to me and to my organization. Why should it be important for me as a client to be working with an outsourcing firm or a third-party services provider that has one or more government relations professionals on staff?
The simple answer is because we certainly bring value to the table. As I said earlier, when it comes to policies and legislations, we keep track of a variety of industries, including those of our customers, the industries they're operating in. And that means that we as a company always have their best interests in mind and are always using our capacities to help them to exceed their goals. And this can be especially useful for small businesses that simply do not have enough resources to employ their own government relations person. And in instances where a legislative initiative threatens to jeopardize their business operations, they can rely on us and on our expertise to help them. And same applies to unforeseen situations that can significantly disrupt the way we do business. I mentioned global pandemic, so coronavirus is definitely one of the best examples of that. In 2020, apart from quickly re-optimizing our products to allow our customers to deploy or improve their takeout, delivery, curbside operations, our company also provided small and medium-sized businesses in the United States with a list of federal assistance programs available to them. And we also collaborated with one of our partners to facilitate small businesses with the access to Small Business Administration paycheck protection loans. And so in case I suppose that there are some listeners who are maybe not that familiar with the US politics. So in case they did not understand what I just said, the Small Business Administration is a government agency in the United States, and they provided loans through the so-called Paycheck Protection Program that help businesses keep their workforce employed during the COVID-19 crisis. And then in return, together with our partners, we made sure that our small business customer had easy access to those loans instead of getting stuck in the bureaucratic process. And another situation where government relations team can play a significant role is our customers' expansion to markets where we are already present. And this is something that can actually be very interesting for big clients who are looking to expand internationally to some other international locations. And I will actually illustrate this with another example from Serbia. So there was a client who was thinking about potentially coming to the Balkans within the next few years as part of their long-term strategy. And their representative came to Serbia some time ago, and we arranged meetings with one of the leading business associations, with academia, nonprofit sector, to just help them get an initial overview of the market. So whether you're a big customer, a small customer, there is definitely services that we can provide to support you, your current business operations, but also your future plans. And as the saying goes, teamwork makes the dream work, and government relations teams definitely make significant contributions to success of their own firm, but also to their customers.
Well, I think you made a very strong case for those players that don't actually have a government relations manager on staff to start looking and to start developing the position soon, because obviously this can make a huge difference. And Nina, thanks a lot for chatting with us today. I'm conscious that while it's early in my day, it's relatively late in yours. And the only thing holding you back from a glass of rakia is me. So we will end the interview now, but thanks for taking some time to be on the CX Files, and we look forward to having you back soon.
And thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoy being your guest, and I'm looking forward to the next opportunity to discuss government relations with you.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.